Bad days. Ugh, we've all had them. But what if I told you there was a way to reverse the momentum of your day, go from negative to positive? That sounds interesting to you, and I hope it does. You're going to want to stay tuned for this episode. So, my name is Angela, and I am an architect, feng shui practitioner, and researcher who has spent my entire career studying the science of design for well-being. So, you don't have to. All you have to do is tune in and subscribe to this channel to get thoughtful weekly episodes where I unpack in easy to understand and, better than that, easy to use ways to leverage the built environment, that space that we are all in for most of our day, to really help us be our best selves and help others in our community as well. So you could be a design professional like me. You can just be somebody who cares about this and wants to up the ante on positive experiences. Either way, I will show you how to do that. We are going to use my custom Salutogenesis card deck, which has two sections: foundational concepts. These are the things in our life that impact our well-being, and then the antidote to that, the 5 aspects that my research has shown impact salutogenesis or well-being, and talk about how they pair together. So every time you tune in, you are going to hear a little bit more information, something a little bit different. And really, I don't pre-select the cards. I don't intentionally pair one with the other. I really do shuffle the deck and ask that we be shown what we most need to hear. So let's go ahead and get started. The first card that I drew from the foundational concepts part of the deck is one of my favorites, and it is oxytocin and the HPA axis. And the best way I can describe this is really what you see depicted on the card, that walk, don't walk sign. And as we know, one side is lit up or the other, never both at the same time. And that is exactly what happens in our bodies. So you may have heard of fight or flight, the stress response. Now, what happens with the stress response? Well, anything that we view as a threat or a danger to us, and keep in mind in the modern world, this often isn't a physical danger. It could be a looming deadline, can be viewed as a threat. But our bodies are designed to only respond to threats as if it were a physical danger. So our adrenal glands release adrenaline and cortisol, which then goes up to our pituitary and hypothalamus glands and activates a whole chain of reactions in our body that is part of the stress response. If we actually had to physically deal with what was causing us stress, we would burn those chemicals off through the physical activity and our body would reset. And we also have to remember our body was designed to experience stress in what we call an episodic way, meaning every once in a while something will happen. But in the modern world, not only is the stress not a physical threat, so we're not burning off those stress hormones, but we're also chronically stressed, meaning that they have flooded our body and they don't get a chance to go away. Now, what is the antidote to that? If we're going to say the stress response is the don't walk, what's the walk sign? What's the opposite version of that? And that is oxytocin. Oxytocin is sometimes called the love hormone. It is the thing that is released when a woman gives birth and is interacting with her newborn baby that ensures parent-child bonding. It is what happens when we are happy and having positive interactions with other people, when we feel joy and satisfaction. And what is really interesting is that the oxytocin and that whole chain of the stress response are what we call mutually regulating. And what that means is you cannot experience them both simultaneously. So even though we would all love to not be as stressed out as we are and often feel that the things that create stress in our lives are out of our control, yes, we can do things like moving around or meditation or practice having better boundaries, but we can also leverage this physical reaction in our bodies and hope to turn off the stress response by focusing on things that bring us joy, things we love. This is why having pictures of friends and family, things where we're happy and enjoying things, having objects in your home that remind you of a fun trip you might have taken or a big accomplishment you have, all of that will start to make a difference in your life. So really leverage what we call in feng shui those environmental anchors, because objects have meaning to us. So pick things that have positive associations for you, and especially with the oxytocin, anything that is going to remind you of other people that you have a harmonious and very loving relationship, also pets. When we do that, when our mind goes to that place where we're thinking about someone or a pet that brings us joy and love, you'll automatically notice that you feel more calm, more centered. And so let's set ourselves up for success by putting those environmental anchors into our environment. Now, the companion card that I pulled is from the sense of coherence part of the deck. Sense of coherence is how meaningful, manageable, and comprehensible the space is to us. It is associated with the metal element in feng shui because it is associated with logic, with thought. We take meaning from our environment, and that meaning is going to either be a stressful meaning or a joy-filled meaning. So you can see how it could activate either the HPA axis, which is the stress response, or the oxytocin levels in our body. Now, the specific card that came out was around confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is essentially seeing what we want to see. Now, you could see this play out whenever you talk religion or politics with people. There's a reason that those are often said to be taboo subjects, because people are very invested in what they believe, and they simply will not hear or even acknowledge evidence to the contrary. So in this card, we've got classroom setting, which can be very fraught. A lot of us have traumas even associated with what it was like to be a student, especially a student struggling with a subject where we're not getting a good grade. And therefore, in our minds, we have a belief about ourselves and our ability. Like you may say, I'm just not good at math, or I can't write. And that belief is a confirmation bias, and it will follow you through your whole life. You will struggle because you expect to struggle. But just like we can flip the stress response by activating the oxytocin response, we can flip our bias. We can play around with that. So, how could you focus on the things you are good at doing? How can you focus on the ways you can feel confident and self assured? How can you begin to reframe how you see yourself so that the confirmation bias won't be around, boy, I am terrible at organizing things. Instead, it's, I am very good at managing chaos and complexity. So now I feel confident. That is a lot of thinking positively and mindset work. Let's talk about what it has to do with your space. When we have space that feels organized, we reinforce a positive sense of ourselves. In Feng Shui, we talk about three huge energy depleters in space. One is clutter, because clutter is chaotic, it's disruptive, it makes you feel like you are less in control. It reminds you that you need to pay attention to cleaning it up, which is often hard to do because now you feel overwhelmed by how much work that's going to be. The second thing that will deplete your energy are unfinished projects. So, did you start working on something and get interrupted and then never quite came back to it? Even though you may not have it top of mind consciously in your subconscious, you know you have to do that. And that thought keeps cycling: unfinished task, unfinished task, unfinished task. So that feels very disruptive. And the last are things that need maintenance. They're broken, they're damaged. And again, our energy keeps being directed, oftentimes subconsciously, to that. So take a look around your home. Is there clutter you could work at organizing? Are there unfinished projects you can start to prioritize and work on? Or is there anything broken and damaged that you either need to discard or repair? Don't put it off any longer. Take the time to do that. Okay, so that's what depletes your energy. What's going to empower your energy? That's going to be things that remind you of your strengths, of your accomplishments. So anything in your home, especially in that fame and reputation or career or relationship area, that reminds you of things you have done successfully, things you have accomplished. Maybe there are things that you've made. Are you an artist or a craftsman? Maybe there are things that you have achieved in your life, that they're big milestones that you've come through in your life events that you've experienced, like a graduation or a marriage or the birth of a child. Anything like that that you can put in your space is also going to start to positively reinforce. Also, think about things that may be negative reinforcements. So, did your mother in law, who you don't get along with well, buy you an expensive figurine that you think is ghastly, but that if you didn't put out, she would notice and ask questions? Well, that figurine is doing a lot more damage than good. It's not keeping the peace. It's reminding you of a difficult and stressful relationship, and maybe even also activating feelings of anger, guilt, shame, unworthiness. So the best thing you can do is to put it away, give it away. You don't have to justify how you set up your house to anyone. You get a chance to do what feels empowering for you and anyone living with you. And that is more important. It supersedes the needs of anyone who may be a visitor in your home. So I hope that this was helpful for you. And if it was, if you want to keep learning this kind of stuff, make sure you like and subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. But let's just recap for now that when we are having an experience where we feel overloaded with stress or negative emotions, and our confirmation bias may be keeping us stuck believing that's the only way it can be, we can consciously flip the script by choosing to reframe thoughts from negative to positive, focusing on what we are good at and people or pets that we love. And we can infuse those things into our spaces so that we leverage feng shui to help us have positive environmental anchors that keep that oxytocin level high so that it forces our stress level to be low. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next time.